Hi, everyone. Welcome to Voice of Our Own Living and Learning. I'm Allison Kinnear. Whew. Today we are talking about just the facts. What do I mean by that? Well, when I was a child development, when I was a student, child development, Humboldt State University, shout out to my fellow child development folks, we had to take a class in my undergraduate that was a child observation study class. And in that class, we would sit up in a observation booth with a one-way mirror. There were microphones in the classroom, and we would study a child. And the thing that we were trying to train our brains around was to separate fact from interpretation. And so we had to watch, we had to write down what we were seeing, but we had to watch ourselves when it came to interpreting things. So, for example, you would see a child have a scuffle with another kid and do this, and the interpretation is the child angrily hit the other kid, right? But that's interpretation. And so we would have to write instead the child raised their hand, furrowed their brow, and, you know, showed their teeth with a curled lip and forcefully moved their hand in a downward direction. And it was tedious learning how to write like this. It seemed maddening that we couldn't just say the kid angrily hit another kid. But the lesson that I learned in the process of taking this course all semester long, and then as my studies continued, having to continue to write in this way, was you realized how often interpretation came in. Sometimes it was clear, and yes, I think we could all look at it and go, the kid looked angry and he hit another kid. Like that, those are some of the facts. But we don't really know the nuances of what that child was feeling on the inside. Maybe it was more frustration, maybe it was protection, maybe it was sadness coming out in this way. We don't know. Oh, my phone ringing. And so, silence that. Hello, Facebook Live. So, what this means is that we can very easily think we can, because our minds are wired for story, our minds are wired for interpretation. And so what happens is when we say the child angrily hit the other kid, then we've suddenly set the stage for the story to play out. And what's happening in our minds is, why is this kid angry? And is this a pattern of anger? And what did the other kid do to make him angrily hit him? And when we pause and we say the child furrowed his brow and curled his lip and raised his hand and lowered it quickly, we leave the ending of that story open to possibility, open to things that our mind maybe had yet to consider. And this is so important on so many levels. Yes, when it comes to the information swirl that we're all in, if you haven't watched The Social Dilemma, the documentary on the social dilemma, I highly encourage you to do so, because what social media is doing, what news is doing, what even our Google searches are doing, is they're reinforcing the stories we're telling ourselves about the world. And we are super susceptible to believing those. And we're super skeptical to listen to anything that falls outside our emotional truth. There's a difference between our emotional truth and facts that exist. And so I found myself today reading something that somebody had shared and going, that's not true, that's not true. And then I realized, well, wait a second, my emotional truth is saying that's not true, but I don't actually know if that's true. Let me do more research. oh, actually, there is a nugget of truth, but then there's a lot left out. Oh, but there's a nugget to truth to this, but there's also a lot left out, right? Like, this is where we do our second guessing in a productive way. This is when we do our fact checking in a productive way. But it also matters for the messages we tell ourselves. You know, so many of the people I work with are saying they've got the script running, then you're not good enough, you're not pushing yourself hard enough, you're not, why are you just, why are you doing things in this way? It's not good, it's not right. Like, we can tell ourselves that story, and because we're wired to story, it's really easy to believe it. Our mind will provide us with just enough data, just enough nuggets of truth, just enough nuggets of memory to tell us all the reasons why that we're failing. You know, you make a mistake, you make a mistake at work or wherever in life, and we can reinforce that message of you're stupid, you don't know enough, everybody hates you, whatever that is. Our minds can provide just enough nuggets of truth for us to believe that story. And so everything that falls outside of that story suddenly doesn't feel true because it's not matching our emotional truths. And so part of our work becomes to do the more tedious work of going back to that observation class and going, wait a second, what am I actually witnessing here? What am I actually experiencing? I made a mistake. Something happened. There was a confusion. Then there was a conversation. And then the project has now continued. No one else is talking about this mistake, but I am thinking about it on repeat. So what are the facts? Is it true that everyone hates me? No. Do I have any evidence in this moment that everyone hates me? No. Okay. In fact, I just got a pat on the back for something I did. Okay. So that's data, right? Like, is it true that I'm a total failure? Well, no, because the project was deemed successful and I was thanked for my contribution. So this is where we have to fact check ourselves. We have to fact check when it comes out into the world, and we also have to do it internally for ourselves, because we can get very easily lost in the world of interpretation. And it's important for us to practice the more tedious skill, but the incredibly useful skill of going, what exactly is here? What exactly is happening? It's like the key to freedom in so many ways, when we can free ourselves from the stories that we're telling ourselves. These things happen. It just happened with someone who I love dearly in my life, where I was telling myself a story about their behavior. They were telling themselves a story about my behavior and other people's behavior. And we realized we were doing this. We were just missing each other. And as soon as we realized, like, oh, I was telling my story based on these assumptions, and the other person goes, oh, and I was telling myself these stories based on those assumptions, we realized, like, oh, we were both wrong. We had to return to the facts of the matter, and and then suddenly we were connected again. But we have to be willing to do that work, to fact check ourselves, to fact check others, to fact check our beliefs, and when it comes to our interactions. So I leave you with that. Just the facts, ma'am. I think that's a Dragnet quote. But I remember Carol. Hi, Carol, if you're watching. Carol, my instructor, one of my professors, saying, like, when it comes to this class, it's just the facts, ma'am. Like, no more. Like, do not put your interpretation. And it's helpful to see how quickly, how unconsciously, how automatically we go straight to those interpretations. And it's so important to dial ourselves back. So I wish you a full week of living, of learning, of observing yourself, being mindful of the emotional truths that we get tugged into, and to fact check yourself, fact check others, but more importantly, fact check yourself. Like, watch your interpretations, truly. Many blessings. Hi, Christy. So glad you're here. And hi to everyone else. I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye bye.